Today's episode is for every pastor who's ever walked up to the pulpit feeling that familiar pressure. The sermon's ready, right? The slides are perfect. You've checked them. The seats are full. But suddenly you start thinking, what if this doesn't land? What if I don't do a good job? What if people don't like me? You've prepared the message, but now you're performing in the moment. That's when pressure replaces peace and when preaching turns into performance. Now, listen, every pastor feels the pressure to perform. Think about what other jobs are you evaluated, critiqued, and compared every single week to all of these other people who have a similar job that they can watch online or listen to on a podcast. Even when people love your sermon, right, the compliment can kind of quietly feed your ego and turn it into more of a performance next week. And then, of course, when they don't compliment, it just fuels some anxiety or maybe a little bit of that nervous tension that you walk around with every day because you know you're being evaluated because of insecurity, right? And without realizing it, we start measuring success by reactions instead of revelation. But what people kind of say after the message, instead of what God says through it, if we're listening to that, we're not listening to the right thing. Here's the danger, right? When performance becomes the point, Jesus becomes a prop. Let me say that again, okay? This is so dangerous. When performance becomes the point, Jesus just becomes a prop. And when that happens, the stage, the pulpit, it loses its power. And it's not because you've stopped caring, right? But it's because you've started carrying pressure that was never meant to be yours to hold. So, what do we do when we feel preparation turning into performance? What do we do? Because this is going to happen to all of us. In fact, it's going to happen a lot to all of us. Well, the answer is not to stop preparing, right? But what we do need to do is begin to prepare differently. We want to begin to prepare like stewards, not stars. Okay, we're stewards of this thing. We're not looking for spotlight. We're not a star. In fact, I want to give you 5 intentional shifts that could change how you prepare for the message you're going to preach this Sunday. Okay, 5 things. Number 1, you have to redefine the win. Okay, your win is not applause or affirmation. It is obedience. The question that you have to ask is, did you faithfully say what God asked you to say? That's the question. If you can answer yes, then you've already succeeded, whether there's applause or not, whether anyone after the sermon pats you on the back and says, great message, sermon, pastor. That is not the win. The win is obedience. Okay, number 2, we have to check our motives before we check our mic. You do a mic check every day, right? Every time you put one on, but you got to check your motives before you start checking that mic. Here's the question you have to ask. Am I stepping up to be seen, or am I stepping up here to serve? Okay, performance seeks validation. Stewardship seeks transformation. Just take an introspective second and think about your heart. What is the motivation? Are you hoping to be seen, or are you hoping to serve? Number 3, we really have to detach outcomes from our identity. And listen, we preach about identity all the time, but as church leaders, separating our identity from the success of a ministry or of a program or of a sermon, right, is really challenging. But you are not your sermon's success, right? Your value does not rise and fall with responses. God works through, right, you, and that is evidence of His grace. It's not proof of your worth. So when God is working through you, He's responsible for the results, not you. Now, if you want to take God out of this and you want it to be about you, then I guess the results are yours to own. But we're not called to do that. In fact, we don't get great results when we do that. Number 4, we have to really invite the Spirit in, not the spotlight. I know that seems obvious and maybe a little, preachy, churchy, but think about this. Before you preach on Sunday, could you just pause and maybe ask God to use you and specifically ask Him not to showcase you? That one prayer can flip your heart from performance for God, for your church, to partnership with God and with the people in your church. And here's the last one. I think we got to really review with reverence, but not with regret. Like, feedback is helpful, right? And when we think about making this not a performative thing, preaching isn't performative, then we kind of can accidentally think, well, then we don't evaluate. We don't try to get better. That's not true. Feedback is helpful, but we should filter it through faith. So maybe we ask this question: What can I learn from what just happened? What should I release from what just happened? Like, you can't really lead well if you're kind of living in the comments section of your Instagram reel from your sermon moment, right? So if you take those 5 practices and turn that pressure into peace, that's what will happen. And it doesn't happen because you've eliminated expectations, but you have kind of anchored everything against a much higher calling, a much bigger purpose. So the next time you step up to preach, I just want you to remember this. You're not performing a sermon. You are delivering a message from the King. You prepare with excellence, but you preach with surrender. Like, you practice your words, right? But you trust His word over you and over this moment and over this church He's called you to lead. And I'll tell you this, when your focus stays on Jesus, the pressure really does begin to fade and power can begin to flow. Because when you stop performing for people, you actually can start preaching to them and communicating with them.